Hello, my name is Jackson LeBlanc, and I'm going to be taking care of you guys today. Our specialty is why tipping waiters need to be mandatory. Tipping is a subject that relates to everyone because there's more tipping in the world than there ever has been with Easy Pay, a system that allows for a simple click for 15, 20, or 25%, and the fact that almost everyone goes to restaurants or events that have an option to tip. I'm credible in talking about tipping, its importance, and the need for mandatory tip because I was once a waiter and know all the work that goes in to receiving a well deserved tip. Tipping needs to be a requirement because of the financial reliance on the tip. For the waiter, it eliminates the anxiety between a customer and a waiter, and it allows for overall smoother business operations. These topics will be covered in order, starting with the financial obligations of the waiter, then I'll transition into the mental aspects of the tip, and lastly, I'll cover how a business can operate with a tip paywall. The most important reason why tipping needs to be a requirement is because the tipping industry relies heavily on tips to survive. According to the National Employment Law Project, or NELP.org, Irene Tug studied and wrote about how much waiters rely on tips. She states that being a waiter, over half the paycheck comes from the generosity of other people. 58% of the paycheck is from tips, and the median paycheck for a waiter is around $867. That means over $500 comes from tips alone. It is nearly impossible to even find a place with rent that is $300 or less. I was also a waiter and heavily agree with this statement. Most of my actual paychecks were close to $0 because most of the wage was with tips. If people don't tip, then I wouldn't make enough money for housing, school, food, and other activities such as my fraternity that I want to do. I also get help from my parents, so imagine trying to live off that with just luck, pretty much. Yes, getting a good tip involves working for it and engaging with the customer and giving them a good experience. But imagine if a mandatory tip were required so that burden of stress and anxiety wasn't there. That brings me to my second point. Anxiety and stress are the second reason as to why tipping is a must and would be easier for everyone if the requirement was in place. The Food Network posted an article explaining how waiting tables is the most stressful job of all time. Their proof is from a study done by Southern Medical University in China. The study shows that it can be more stressful than being a neurosurgeon. A neurosurgeon. Imagine the hassle of remembering all your tables in their section, making sure they have water and any other drinks, remembering their order and placing it, making sure the food is prepared correctly, and delivering it whilst hearing multiple people conversating in the restaurant and hearing screams from the kitchen. The anxiety isn't always on the waiter, though. Many customers have a hard time knowing how much to tip. According to an article by NPR.org or National Public Radio, many people say that tipping gives anxiety because of the decrease in happiness or for the person being tipped. Professor Michael Lynn explains this best. In summary, he states that tipping is included in the net loss of money for people, but the benefit of tipping exceeds this loss because of social pressures based on the tipping. Adding a minimum tip floor would remove this anxiety completely for both the tipper and the one working for the tip. The waiter can still work harder for a little bit extra money in the tip, but knows that they'll be able to pay the bills with the tip floor, thus creating a better work environment. Having a known tip will be beneficial for many people and not just the waiter, and will create a better work environment for everyone who works inside of the restaurant. I used to work at Drusilla, which is a critically acclaimed restaurant located in Baton Rouge. From my experience working there, almost every person gets a little bit of the tip money. The waiter receives tips from the manager, with a cut taken out for everyone who worked the night, including the busser, host, dishwasher, and the cooks. Although I'm not a waiter anymore, my friend Sam still works there, and I interviewed him about what a mandatory tip would do for him and everyone who works there. He said, quote, "A good tip can go a very long way. It is the difference between making $10 an hour and to $20 an hour. It can also boost my mood to work harder because the satisfaction of a great tip makes you want to work. I think a tip mandate would be great because everyone would push to get a little extra money whilst knowing there's a safety net involved." Tipping needs to be a requirement because of the financial reliance of the tip on the waiter. It eliminates the anxiety of the customer and the waiter and allows for smoother business operations. Waiters rely on this tip money. They are the reason why we can sit down at a restaurant and enjoy ourselves. So why not let them have their tip guaranteed? A tip mandate would also remove all the stress from a person tipping and some stress from the person working, which can go a long way for both parties before they sit down, during their meal, and after the service. Also, operation day to day for each business that accepts tips can go so much more smooth if they know a tip is guaranteed at the end of the workday. We need a tip mandate so all of these issues disappear and waiters can live a healthy life. In closing, thank you for your attention and your interpretation of how much a tip can go for someone's day. And in that case, all tips are welcomed and appreciated, or should I say mandatory. My Venmo is Jackamo225, JACKAMO 225. Thank you.